Greetings, family. This is Dr. Kia Pruitt, and it is Sunday, July the 23rd, 2022, and the time is 8:18 p.m. And I thought I'd have just a little evening chat with my friends and family this evening while I'm preparing for bed. So my mom taught me when I was a teenager to brush my hair 100 times, 100 times at night. And it's not something that I continued on as I've, grown into adulthood. But what I noticed is when I stopped doing it, my hair stopped growing as much as it had grown when I was younger. So we're just going to go ahead and brush through my hair, because I did pick this habit back up of brushing my hair before I go to bed, because it feels good to my scalp and it's so soothing and relaxing. But let's get into this discussion that I've been wanting to have for a very long time. So it's kind of like twofold. The first thing I want to say is that people have to stop blaming or casting forth reasoning on why we aren't being successful on the government, on the deep state, on the man, on all these other people, because while these beings and people in power have instituted certain programs to keep us down and to oppress us and to, feed us programs that will divide the family, we have to take some accountability for accepting it. And as long as we only focus on what other people have done to us, we will, not put the responsibility on ourselves, and we can be easily tricked into allowing certain things to happen to us again. So when I was growing up, my mom never allowed me to blame racism or discrimination for any type of shortcomings. As a matter of fact, I was never allowed to use the word can't. Never. It was a word that was a bad word in my household. And you got in big trouble for saying can't, because my mom said you can. And it's never you can't, it's always how can I. So instead of saying I can't, if you say how can I, then you open up your mind to opportunities and to finding and creating or coming up with solutions and executing solutions. So this is where I got this mentality from, is by not blaming people. And that brings me to the community classified as Black, because quite frankly, I am really tired of hearing about racism, discrimination, white supremacy, the man, the white man. It's the system's fault. This is the reason why we don't have men in a house. This is the reason why the Black family's been destroyed. And while I can hear to an extent that there were programs put in place to cause a division in a family, at some point we have to take accountability for buying into the stuff, for accepting these programs, for allowing them into our homes. So one of the biggest things that I hear as being a problem in a so-called Black community is, we all know it, is the absenteeism of the man from the house. It is a big issue. And even though people don't want to talk about it, and we want to say men are bad and they have problems and it's their fault, all this, it doesn't matter to me what happened. What matters to me now is that we're dealing with the result of it. So when I was coming up, I would ask questions like, why are so many people saying that, they don't have a father at home? Why didn't I have a father at home? Why are so many women saying that, men aren't SHI, that word, that foul word? And so one of the biggest excuses or reasonings I would hear is because I guess in the 1970s, women received welfare benefits, and if you received welfare benefits, you couldn't have a man in the house. So they would say, it's the government's fault because you couldn't have a man in the house if you had benefits, if you received these government benefits. So my question was, why did you receive the government benefits if you had a man in the house? So I was thinking maybe it was because the man wouldn't work or he refused to work. And so people started explaining to me, no, back in those days, our men had jobs in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. In fact, they had businesses and some of them had jobs, but the women received the welfare benefits. And then when they did, then the government said, well, you can't receive both the benefits and a man in the house because I'm zaddy. I'm taking care of you. I'm providing for you. And I thought to myself, call me ignorant, but it makes sense to me. Why would you take care of a woman and children if the man is in the house? And why, woman, are you accepting these benefits if you have a man in the house? Like, I'm not getting it, because my understanding, just from my research, and people, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, men had jobs. Now, some men chose to do crack. Some men chose to do heroin. Some men chose to leave their jobs and womanize. Some women chose to not listen to their husbands when the husband was saying, don't accept those benefits, because if you let Zaddy in our house, then that means he's going to control the house. But this brings me to the mentality of people. Why did you have to go take the drugs? Just because they put them in your community don't mean you have to smoke them. Just because somebody put guns in your community doesn't mean you have to pick them up. Just because somebody offers you free benefits doesn't mean you have to take it if you have a husband in your house. So we can bring up all the reasoning and all the excuses and all of the talking points for why we allow this to happen. But my point is, we can never allow this to happen again, because look at the state of the community. Look at how many children are in the streets killing each other. And I'm saying this from a place of passion, because I come from Cleveland, Ohio is where I was born, but I raised my children in Louisville, Kentucky, and every single day there are men killing each other. And we get mad at the men and we blame them and we say they need to be in a home. But I'm trying to figure out why it is that we rather have benefits from the government than to stay with some of the men that we made these babies with. Now, that brings me to my second point. When I was studying for my PhD, I wrote a paper on how to graduate and retain Black men from college. And one of the terminologies that I came up with was misandry. That is a pathological aversion towards Black men. It is a deep hatred for Black men. It is a deep aversion toward, or against, I should say, men in general. But Black misandry is a deep pathological aversion against Black men. And what my study showed me was that some teachers have this pathological aversion against Black men, some administrators, some staff members in the institutions of higher education, and they were saying this is why some men do not succeed. So I sat with that and I said, okay, so Lozano and Yoso came up with this Black misandry terminology. They were sociologists and they came up with it, I think, in the 1970s, and they wanted to explain why there was so much hatred against the Black man. So they had to come up with Black misandry. And so I said, okay, I can accept that for a basic discussion. But what I want to understand is why I see us women in a so-called Black community have a deep pathological aversion against or towards Black men. Why there's this hatred, this disdain for men that prevails throughout our community. And it's interesting because we'll lay down with them and make babies with them. We'll get on the gram, we'll get on social media and show all our booties and our breasts out so we can get attention from them. But we don't want to stay with them long enough to raise our babies. And then we want to talk against them and talk about them, disrespect them. But we will go and get the benefits from Zaddy and let Zaddy become the man, but we won't be the man. We won't allow the man to be the man in our homes. And so I'm just submitting to you today that at some point we're going to have to grow up and we're going to have to stop talking so vehemently and viciously towards men classified as black, and against men classified as black, because we're raising sons who look like the men we talk against. And it's really interesting to me how a lot of us who have platforms will continue to talk about racism, discrimination, hatred, as if we're that concerned about the men in our communities. Because if we were really concerned about the men in our communities, then we would be doing our best to help them heal, or to at least respect the ones that are in our households and in our families. Now, it's really troubling to me the way I see women competing against men, trying to act like men in our, our demeanor, try to act like men. We want to have the same jobs. We want to have the same lifestyle. We want to do the same things that they do with their leisure time, as if we're men. But see, then we'll realize when we get a certain age that stuff is not cute. It's not. And it's interesting when I speak about it on my platform, especially on Facebook, it's my female friends who want to get real upset because, they call themselves, or female Facebook friends, they call themselves boss bees and boss chicks, and I'm a boss and I'm a this and I'm a that, and I got my own money and I got this and that. But then in the next breath, you're talking about where are all the good men? Where you're acting like one, so you're not getting chosen. And it's really interesting. And one of the reasons why I'm bringing this up is because you all know that SCOTUS overturned RVW. And who did that make extremely mad except the woman, and a woman classified as black? You know why? Because we wanted to do whatever we wanted to do with our bodies. We wanted to lay whoever we wanted to lay with and make babies, and then talk in a manner towards the very men we laid down with, and then execute their children. And so there's now some discussion that SCOTUS may overturn same-sex marriage. You know who's going to tear up this country if that happens? A lot of people. You know who's going to lead that out? Women classified as black. And you know why? Because we jumped on the bandwagon. Because yes, we care about people and we're concerned about rights. But also, we jumped on that bandwagon because we wanted to escape our responsibilities. We wanted to escape our job of being submissive to men. We wanted to escape the charge that was given to us to be a helpmeet. We want to make that one word, help me. I'm a help me. I'm a help me for him. No, a help meet means that you are a help that's worthy of him, that you are a help that's prepared for him, that you are a help that's cooperative to him. But we don't want to cooperate. We don't want to be a help. We don't want to support anybody's vision. We want to live in chaos and confusion. So we jumped onto the liberal agenda and the liberal bandwagon to say, yes, we support all of this chaos and confusion because we didn't want to be held accountable for the job that we had or were supposed to have to run the house and perpetuate the seed of the man that looks like us. So if SCOTUS overturns that ruling, it's going to be women classified as black leading this charge, fussing, cussing, yelling, marching, and all that, because we like to live in chaos. And now if you say that system and that paradigm has been dismantled, then now I have a responsibility to maybe be married to my children's father or be married before I have babies. And now I have to be responsible enough to be subject, to be yielding, to be loving and supportive of that man who looks like me, who has the charge to lead, provide for, and protect my community. And now I can't blame Zaddy for anything. I can't take a handout because now they get rid of all those handouts. So now I'm going to have to do the job I should have been doing all along. Just like with Black Lives Matter, who led the charge? It's interesting. It's really, really interesting the way we pretend like we love men classified as black. We led that charge. We tore up communities. It was the woman that looked like me, the woman classified as black, led the charge in the front lines, yelling, screaming, spitting, hollering, throwing things at the police. And I'm telling you what I know, because until freedom, Black Lives Matter, all of them, Antifa, they were all in Louisville, Kentucky. We were the center of this. They led the whole George Floyd riots. Some of them did it because of Breonna Taylor, but they led the George Floyd riots, right in Louisville, Kentucky. And at the forefront of the line, oh, it was the woman that looked like me. And it wasn't just it wasn't the soft feminine women who was staying at home, taking care of home. No, it was the ones who wanted to compete with men, act like men, yell, scream, and holler, and be aggressive like men. And it was really interesting to me how you're going to lead. You act like you love men so much, but you the same ones that talk against men. You hate them. You want to compete against them. You want to act like them. You want to have more partners than them. And I'm telling you what I know about Louisville, Kentucky. The same ones on their platforms talking about how men ain't shit, but you in the middle of the street screaming and hollering and acting a fool, throwing things at the police. When you hear that a policeman allegedly hit or destroy or kill a black man. And you say you love him, but he's not in your home. You don't have a husband. You talk bad against your children's father. I'm talking about as a whole, women classified as black. And then you will say it's all the white man's problem. It's all the white man's reason for this, that, and the third. But what accountability do we take as women? This is all of us. What accountability? We will tear up this country over something that happened to a man classified as black, but we don't want to submit. We don't want to get married. We don't want to listen. We don't want to properly, do the things that we're supposed to do. And I'm coming from a place as a teacher. So I would teach the men who were in the street, the young men selling drugs and guns and shooting each other and coming in the classroom with ankle bracelets. And I would ask them, what's your problem? First of all, I'm not scared of you. I'm from the projects of Cleveland, Ohio. If you think I'm scared of you, you might as well go talk to somebody else. Now sit down, be quiet, and come to my desk and tell me what your problem is. Because what I'm not going to do is give up on you. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to learn your learning style. We're going to sit down and we're going to come up with a plan for how you can learn. If you don't know how to read, we're going to sit here and I'm going to read these questions to you. And you give me the answers, and then we're going to write the answer down to the test. And I had men who wouldn't even come to school, who started coming to school, who started coming and doing their homework, who brought their friends in at lunchtime. And it got to be so wonderful that the principal I was just a sub at the time, came to me and said, we want to offer you a full-time job, Dr. P, because you're the only one that I've ever seen that really, really love these male children. This was a Caucasian man. You love these children. You love them like they're yours. You take time out with them. You come early. They come to your classroom and they talk to you. You sit with them at lunchtime. You do extra work with them during your break when you don't have to. It was sometimes my classroom would be so full at break time that I would have to say, okay, guys, that's enough. I'm going to have to close my door. Like I'm getting tired. And I didn't want to close the door while I had male children in the room. So I'd be like, y'all going to have to take some time outside of the classroom and let me take a deep breath and get a break and get some water or nourishment. And then y'all can come in. So I sat these young men down and I said, what's your problem? What's going on? Why are you out here acting a fool? Why are you out here shooting each other? Why you got an ankle bracelet on? What's wrong with you? And you know what they would say to me? Some of them, I don't know who my father is. Or my mom won't let me have a relationship with my dad. Or the old heads in the street have told me that I can sell for them. And I could do this for them and I could do that for them. And I can get off if I get caught. And so I said, wait a minute. So this is a problem because we've been blaming the white man, the system, white supremacy, cops, and all these people for our problems when the problem really is us. Now, I don't even want to get into what happened 10, 20, 30 years ago, because at some point you have to take accountability for where you are and make things work and fix them in your life. So we're living this raunchy life in front of the children out here killing each other in the streets. And it really hurt my heart to hear the young men say, I don't know who my daddy is, or my mom won't let me spend time with my dad. So what I'm saying is there is a psychological, pathological aversion towards or against, however you want to put it, men classified as black right in the home, right in the seat and the heart of a lot of women. Now we pretend like we all for them when we hear that a cop is involved in annihilating them. But I question your love and your concern when you are all on social media talking about men named SHIT. I question your love and your concern when the young men are coming to me saying you keeping them away from their fathers. At what point are we going to say, I take responsibility for how I act? I take responsibility for what I'm doing. I take responsibility for not knowing how to subject myself to a man. And that's why I'm going out here living a wild life, because I don't like structure. At what point are we going to take accountability for not wanting to be subject? Everybody has to be subject to somebody. Everybody has to have some type of covering or some type of rules. But you know who's out of control? It's the women who look like me. And then you get a good man. You say you want a good man that's provide and protect. And then when he try to bring order to you, you want to scream, holler, and kick and fight and get all on social media and say men ain't SHIT. So some of them aren't, and neither are some of us. So when are we going to take accountability for our mentality and for our behaviors? So what I'm suggesting is that we pause, we stop blaming other people, and we start looking at the mirror. That comes for me too. Look in the mirror at ourselves and see what we can do. And again, I'm telling you, if SCOTUS overturns same-sex marriage, it's going to be the black woman or the woman classified as black that's going to be in the middle of the street acting a darn fool because she has used that community as a scapegoat for her not submitting to her man at home and not having to have order and structure. She'd rather live in chaos. I'm telling you what I see. I saw it all in Louisville, Kentucky. They want to be over the No Fucking Around Coalition, the NFAC. They want to be over the black militia. They want to be over this and that instead of being at home raising their children. And I would ask them, why are you in the middle of the street rioting, protesting, throwing stuff at the police officer and your children are at home? Because if you were really concerned about the black man, you would be taking care of your black children at home. Or worse than that, why are you in the middle of the street with your little boys over here, and you teaching them to be abrasive and aggressive and disrespectful and spitting in the face of the police officer? Because you know, when I was growing up, they taught us our place was at home. But we don't want to hear that no more. We want to be in the middle of the street. We want to be fighting. We want to act like the man. We want to yell and scream and holler and fuss and fight with the police. It's just complete chaos and it's out of order. And I'm encouraging us to look at our own behaviors and ask yourself, do I have black misandric attitudes? Do I have a deep-seated pathological aversion against black men? And why is that? So some men have acted unseemly, and then some of us have just bought into the whole liberal agenda that we're supposed to hate men so much and love ourselves so much that we can't have any order. And I know what I'm talking about because I worked at the universities, the level. And in a university, it's one of the first things it permeates through almost all of the extracurricular activities, stand up for this right and that right. And you just hear it constantly. Stand up for this group of people and that group of people and this group of people. Damn the black man. For real. And so we were hard pressed to come up with Student African American Brotherhood, funds for that, African American Male Initiative, Collegiate 100, and all these type of programs to help men who are classified as black to succeed and graduate from college. But meantime, you got all this money to talk about supporting this community and that community and everybody else. And the woman, because they give the woman a whole lot of benefits. They give the woman a whole lot of benefits so that we can become entitled and think we don't need a man. And watch what I say if SCOTUS overturns same-sex marriage. Yeah, maybe people should be upset, but look who's going to lead the charge, because we always take it upon ourselves to lead a charge against something when it's all about chaos. Well, we're the same ones who took the benefit from the government, who said, oh, I can't have my husband at home, but I can get a free check. Well, I'll take this free check. I'll take this Section 8, but I'll be darned if I subject to my husband or to my baby's father. And I've seen men take their women back over and over again, but because you rather have a free check, you disrespect and disregard that man, and you go take that free check. But then you turn 40, 45, 50, and you're not as cute as you used to be. And people aren't paying you attention like they used to. And now you wonder where all the good men are. I see you. I know. So, do you have a deep pathological aversion against men? That's misandry. Do you have a deep pathological aversion against or deep root hatred when it comes to men, and particularly men classified as black? And you can say men ain't SHIT. You can say the black men don't do this, that, and the third. But the CDC put out a report, and they looked at who are the most involved fathers of all the fathers and all the races in their children's lives. And what they found is it was the man classified as black. That's the most involved father. So all that stuff we've been hearing and we've been spewing out of our mouth that they don't care about their children, to the most part, is a lie. Now, you have a lot that don't care about their children. And then you have a lot of people who won't allow them to be a part of their children's lives. But even being the case that many of them don't take care of their children, the number one men who are actively involved in their children's life are men classified as black. Another thing to dispel is that there are more men in prison than there are in college. So we have to stop believing all these lies and feeding them into our minds and our mentality and leading a life as if all of this were true. Because while some of it is true, a lot of it isn't. And even if it were true, what are we doing to make it better? Because if you're trying to compete against a man, if you're rubbing up at a man, if you're being disrespectful, if he can't tell you anything, if you don't want to be yielding, you don't want to let him be the leader of the house, you don't want to submit to a man, period, you rather live in disorder and chaos, then what part of it is our accountability and our fault? Because it's so easy, and I'm speaking from a divorced woman, it's so easy to get a divorce. But when you find yourself divorced trying to raise kids, that stuff ain't fun. Which is why some of us said, you know what? It's in my best interest to try to get along with my children's father and ride this out until the end, which is what I did. But everybody's not able to do that, but you are able to show some love and stop being so cold and stop trying to compete. Stop trying to lead this charge of hating men, and particularly men classified as black, because it's ruining our families. Yeah, they have some accountability, but so do we. And some of us have such a deep-rooted hatred that we spend so much of our energy talking about how much we hate them until we realize we need them. And sometimes that's when you're in your 40s and older, and you're not as cute, or when your children start becoming disrespectful and your male children start getting a little testosterone and showing out and, exerting his masculinity. And then you need to calm that down. You want to look around like, where's my help? Well, maybe you might have to call Zaddy and see if Zaddy really cares about you, right? But in conclusion, and at the end of all this, there may have been some systems in place. There may have been some programs in place that have contributed to the demise of different communities. But at some point, we're going to have to be responsible enough and accountable enough to say, I reject this. I do not consent to this, and I will not allow this in my house, because I don't believe in chaos and confusion. And that's what some of us have chosen to live, in chaos and confusion, rather than cohesion, love, family. If you can't do it we can't do it for ourselves, do it for our posterity, our children, and our future generations. So that's what I wanted to talk about. We always talk about misogyny, but very rarely do we talk about misandry, or deep pathological aversion towards men. And it's interesting because men are the ones who build the infrastructure. Men go out and work every day. They get no thanks. How many of you tell your man thank you? They get no thanks. Nobody gives a care. Some of them are psychologically traumatized. They're troubled. Some of them, but they still work every day. Or they still, a lot of them are really out working, trying to do their best. And we women give them our behinds to kiss. Now, I'm going to tell you what Donald Trump said in a documentary. They said, what do you do when your wife disrespects you, or she competes against you, or she doesn't treat you with the greatest of admiralty? He said, you get rid of her and get another one. And people got all riled up in that. But some of us act like we're not dispendable or dispensable. We would rather be disrespectful and disregarding towards men than appreciative that you have a covering. I don't get it. We get on social media, there are no good men, blah, blah, blah. Then you finally get chosen and you want to give him your butt to kiss. And you want to talk about how no good he is. Like, I'm not getting it. Like, and then we're the ones that leave. So, I mean, it's troubling. We need to check ourselves, and we need to see if we have Black misandric attitudes and behaviors pervasive or just at the forefront of our family life and our family structure, because over 70% of us in the community classified as Black or as indigenous women don't have husbands, or have left our husbands, or we have babies out of wedlock. And we got really beside ourselves because we can just have a baby by a man that classified as Black, and then just go and kill it. Now we can't do that. So now we're going to look for the next bandwagon to jump on. And I kid you not, it's going to be the one, if they even have a discussion on getting rid of same-sex marriage, it's going to be the Black woman that's going to want to lead that charge, that she don't want no kind of accountability for marriage and family. She don't want no kind of structure, no kind of organization. She just wants to live in perpetual chaos, which is evident by what's going on in the community today. We want to blame Zaddy, the government, but at some point we're going to have to take accountability. Let the men be accountable. Let the men hold themselves accountable or each other accountable. But when is somebody going to hold us accountable? We never want to be held accountable for anything that we do, any decision we make, for accepting Zaddy, for laying on our backs, for having abortions, for having babies by children, men that we don't like. We don't give an account for anything. For leaving with nothing. But our children see us, and they don't do what we say, they do what they see us do. And that's me included. So all I'm saying is we need some order, and we need some structure, and we need to stop pointing the finger and blaming everybody. I'm so sick and tired of blaming racism, discrimination, the white man, Zaddy, this person, that person, systemic racism. No, look in the mirror at yourself and say, what part did I play, and what can I do to bring order in my family? Because there's nobody keeping you from gathering seeds. There's nobody keeping you from going to work. There's nobody keeping you from loving your children. There's nobody keeping you from getting married and having a good family. There's nobody keeping you from buying precious metals. There's nobody keeping you from farming. There's nobody keeping you from learning how to sew. There's nobody keeping you from building in your community. There's nobody keeping you from learning how to barter. There's nobody keeping you from establishing your own militia to protect your families. There's nobody keeping you for raising and teaching your own children. There's nobody keeping you for instructing your own children. There's nobody keeping you from protecting yourself. There is nobody keeping you from thriving. Nobody. So miss me with all the racism